Hello, everyone. Here we are for another episode of Dear Younger Self. We are on episode 6, so I'm super excited because, and I say that for all of it, but this is literally right now my little passion project because, man, we are getting great women on here sharing their top lessons to share with teenagers and younger 20 folks, and just kind of combating and dispelling some myths or sharing lessons that they can incorporate as they transition into adulthood. Now, I know some of you guys are probably saying, like, I'm in my 20s, I'm an adult. Girl, no, you're not yet. Um, but we're on episode 6, and I'm super excited to announce my my next guest, Jessica Harris. We met in a mindset group coaching program, Extreme Execution. I've had a few other women in that program also share their testimonies and their lessons. But when you have a solid group, right, Jess,
Yes, yes,
let's share the wealth of information that's in
yes,
this group. So
absolutely.
just really quickly, Jessica has her own business. She's an entrepreneur. She's a public speaker. She's an educator. She's a
Mhm.
mommy of 2. So she's wearing many, many hats that we can really pull from. And I
Mhm.
think if we had all day, there's going to be lessons galore, especially across the board with all those roles, right? But
Yeah.
you're still in the game, very active in the group, and just very empowering. So thank you so much for spending time with me today and joining me for this episode.
Yes, yes. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me today. I was excited when you invited me about Dear Younger Self. There's so many journals that I've written to my younger self. So I look forward to sharing some tidbits today with you and with your
Yes.
audience. Yeah.
That's the first thing that I got to start up again, though, is journaling, right? Because
Yeah.
you go through life and it's like, man, what
Mm.
happened when I was in my 20s, my early 30s, this. I got to start that. And I got so much in here that I can even share. And I'm sure that there's a lot of healing component to that, too. So,
Yeah.
first
So,
lesson, journal.
first lesson is journal. In journal, there's two things I want to add to that. Journal for yourself. Like I literally taking notes here, so you keep me looking down. I'm journaling, and even in this book, it's from things that last year. And last year is when I transitioned into my business full time, and to look back and just see headlines that say this is the first day of this, or this is my last day of that. Just reflecting, like it's always right for self.
Yep.
I was younger, and my parents like got a hold of my diary, and I had to read it out loud to them. And for years, I'm saying this, I didn't want to write. I was always cryptic in my writing. And then I began to write for self. And it was just so freeing when you journal and you're not worried about what someone's gonna read and think about it, is one thing. But also the journaling for you to reflect back on, like you said, you're gonna want to know how you navigate it. Sometimes we're going through challenging things, and it can be encouraging to say, like your journal started, man, I was in this crisis, and then it can have the celebrating things to say, I'm now here. And so to be able to track and have for your own records, but also something to share, in the future. So I mentioned that I have 2 minions, and something I was very intentional about with them was journaling their birth story not long after they were born. So every year, around their birthday, I will retell them their story. And I know by memory, but I'll never forget. It never surprises me. Every year when I read it, I gain something new, or that I had forgotten about the details. And so just the
Oh,
journaling, it do it for you. When you do it for you, you can come back and it could be all inspiring to you. And that legacy building, right? We're gonna be long and gone. And maybe someone will find it, but we'll be long and gone. So they can't talk to us
yeah.
about it.
The great grands, like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, my grandma, my mama, my Gigi, this is how she navigated this. Like, I would
Yeah.
love to find something like that from,
Right?
my great greats. So thank you for sharing that. I
Yeah.
didn't mean to sidetrack you, but I
Oh,
was
no,
like,
no, no.
wait, nugget,
Yes.
journal,
Nugget
my
journal.
lesson.
Yes. Number one lesson. Yeah.
So you mentioned you have a business. You want to talk a little bit about your business and what's your purpose?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So my purpose, ooh,
Oh,
we
that's the
can,
what? Yeah.
that's a whole day. No, so my business is, I turn my light on, a little bit up. So my business is centered in supporting Black and Brown students within STEM. So all of it has some tenet of that. And so I have three major pillars of my business. One is education and public outreach. And so public speaking is what I love to do. The object behind me is the pillar of creation. This was actually taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. I love sharing science with anyone and all that want to know. And so often people who are writing grants or want to partner in reaching certain audiences, they'll reach out to me. And then a good portion of all of this has threads of diversity, equity, and inclusion work, trying to build a more diverse this workforce, more diverse environments within our higher education is what I focus on. And the thing that's always going to be dear to my heart is the Auntie Jess mentoring. And so that is coaching with professionals, just one-on-one, because sometimes we get out in our careers and we're the only one. And so to have people to bounce ideas off in a non-judgmental way, but understand the context, right? Because our STEM field has a context and a culture to that, and having someone that can help you navigate. And then the biggest is my students call me dearly Auntie Jess. And so that's coaching them either in group coaching sessions or one-on-one coaching sessions, and using our extreme. I'm so excited now to have the extreme execution tool to have a way of focusing our strengths, because in our field we just get so beat down sometimes about what's happening, and to be able to focus on your strengths. And so that's my business there. So it's Jessica A.
Beautiful.
Harris LLC. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. Our kids need it. They need a village.
Yes.
They need to see Black and Brown folks doing it too, and we were talking about this before, this episode of just building from the ground up and the challenges that may arise. And it's so easy to give up. But when you have people that are doing it, that look like you, that
Yeah.
just support you, you're like, if she can do it, I can do it.
Absolutely. I love what you just said about village. That is my work with Auntie Jess. Like it's Auntie for a reason. I always liken this story into depending on your family and relation dynamics. I fully understand that could be complicated.
Mhm.
But my relationship with my aunts is still actively very important to me, because I didn't grow up with my mother. She left us when we were young, 6 to 9 months old. And I've seen, and she's now passed away, and that's a whole other story for another time. But I said it to say my aunts were who I saw that their identity was like mine. And I didn't have my mom in my household to look to. And so I look to my aunts. And so a lot of who I am is like them. And even when I'm around them, I love there's something about family, like blood family. And I fully understand there is family you get to choose. And so
Yeah.
I have friends that are like family you get to choose, but there's nothing like being around family that's blood and y'all got certain characteristics and y'all do something a certain way. My daughter, her name is Claire. She laughs like we have what we call a Harris laugh, and it's loud. It's
Okay.
loud. And I'm not apologetic about it. And my daughter always calls it out, Mommy, you so loud. And I'm like, it's just the Harris laugh. Get used to it. And so I believe fundamentally in the village. And for me, my aunties were that go-to place where maybe I couldn't go to my parents, I could go to my aunts, and they love you, but they still gonna give you that tough love. And I
Mhm.
believe in invoking the village to others, right? To make them feel seen and to heard, but also creating a village. Like I'm contributing to the village. Like I'm old school in that way. I'm young, but I'm still old school in that way,
Yeah.
that we've lost in our country, in our kind of global society, this sense of village, right? We're not in the same city, but if I know we were, we'd be like, we'd have our kids together. We would be village to each other. And that is so needed. It's so needed, regardless of I'm in STEM, regardless, even in this coaching group, we have what's there is that village. We're helping support each other. And when you're doing something that hasn't been done, I want to be able to pass the torch to the next generation and say, like, listen, I did a lot of groundbreaking stuff. It's not fun. Like you may see me on the other end, but in the midst of it, that trailblazing is not, it is hard.
It's
It's really
hard.
hard.
It's lonely.
Lonely.
It's
Yes.
lonely. It's like I told you, it feels like sometimes you're treading water because
Yeah.
and then also like we can talk about this too. Like we feel like we have to be superwoman all the time. We feel like
Yes.
we don't want to
Hmm.
burden people. And this is where
Hmm.
I am so thankful and grateful for the community we have, because literally you guys are like, oh, you need help with X, Y, and Z, reach out.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's work because we're all on the same path of
Yeah.
trailblazing. So,
Yes.
oh man, there's just so many layers to all of this that we can dig in. But I definitely want to hear, what is your like number one lesson that you want to share with, like if you had one lesson that you can share with your younger self,
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
Jessica, Jess,
Yeah.
laughter and joy and peace and just creative. But what was the one thing, if you can share with us, that you would share with that little teenager or
Oof, it's so heavy. I just
child?
have to honor, man. That question is so heavy. It's really hard to condense it down to one. But as we discussed, I'll share just one. It would be to develop and have people do how do I want to say this? The tag phrase would be self-love. What
Mm-hmm.
I would say to my younger self is because what my younger self needed, believe in you. Stand in your uniqueness, stand in the things that bring you joy, and don't let anyone ever tell you different. That's what mine would be. So be centered in self-love. And I get emotional because this is such a dear topic to me. And I was sharing with you before we got on that I'm an 80s baby. And my parents, I love my parents dearly, but they were of a generation where they didn't really speak love. Like it was more like, you're in my house, I'm feeding you, I'm taking care of you. Of course, I love you, but it wasn't a lot of I'm saying that I love you. And they're also not physically affectionate people, which I'm very like, I want to hug you, I want to sit and cuddle up against you. My grandfather, I love my grandfather. I think of him often. He when I would be with him at his house, I'm always cuddled underneath him, and he called me, Justin. He's taller than me, and I'm biracial, so white and black, and so this is from my white side of the family. And it's just like this love that was there, but I didn't have it in my household. So this I want to. I know you asked me for one point, but it's just I want. It's like is
No, take it away. You can
okay,
definitely, no, don't,
okay,
yes,
okay. Is
yes.
point B or point A of this is, I guess there's two things I want to say. We need to be more gracious with one another related to self-esteem. Yes, self-esteem is how you view yourself, but we
Mm-hmm.
need to be more gracious that some of us, myself, have experienced trauma that make it hard for me to see me. And I witnessed this, for example, when I was in undergrad. I went to Grambling State University, and I had it's a HBCU, historically Black community college and university, and I had a roommate where it was like contrast in how we were raised. I mean, of course, she I'm a military brat. There's a whole lots related to that. She was kind of born and raised in the same area, but she has such a close connection with her mother. Like they talk all the time. She had such a level of confidence that like was awe inspiring to me. And today, I think she's a rock star. She's amazing. Whitney, I love you. Um, but I saw that like this concept of self-esteem and confidence can either be built or be destroyed. And in mine, it wasn't cultivated as much. And so it wasn't until I was an undergrad that I really started to believe that I was beautiful. And you probably looking at me, Crystal, like, but Jessica, like,
I
didn't you
know.
always think that? No, I did not. People would constantly tell me I was beautiful, and I would receive it like, okay, thank you. But I didn't believe it inside. That's because of some trauma that I've experienced in my youth. And so I want to say, one, that your confidence can be built. So that self-love piece is, there is hope on the other side, regardless of what, I feel this thing, regardless of what you've been through, regardless of what you face. I am not negating that those traumatic things weren't good, that they weren't okay. When I want to always hold space for that. But there is hope on the other side. So that can be built. Just like your self-esteem is of yourself, it can be built, and give yourself grace. And the second part of this is in the self-love piece, is something I do with my kids now. So I know we're talking to the younger generation, but if you did come up with that self-esteem, that self-love, you can start now. So something I do with my children every day is we have some I statements. We say, I am the head and not the tail. I am above and not beneath. I am more than a conqueror. I am loved. I am valued. I am important. And all these other adjectives. Over the years, my kids have added their own. My son said once, I'm honorable. I'm honored. So we added that. My daughter said, I'm responsible. We added that. And so that self-esteem can be built. And as another tidbit, we said journaling. I would say one tidbit of all of this, if you don't have that one, there's hope that you can have that. I don't care if you're 18, I don't care if you're 21, I don't care if you're 50, it can still be developed. There's still hope. So the action item that you can do today is, if you don't know, I'm going to make sure I get the right name of this. I believe it's called the Personal Bill of Rights. So y'all, I ain't gonna sit here and lie to y'all to say I didn't arrived here. This has been a journey. What you're seeing and witnessing has been a journey. It is, yeah. It's called the Personal Bill of Rights. So you don't have your affirmational statements now, and you're like, I don't even know where to start with, Auntie Just search Google. There's many different ones, but they all pretty much say the same thing. But it's called the Personal Bill of Rights, and begin to read that. What I love about the Personal Bill of Rights, yes, I got this through counseling, was it gives you statements of just facts. Like, I have the right to change my mind. I used
Mm,
to think that. I used to think that I had to, if I said, Crystal, something to you, I really like the color yellow. I didn't
yeah.
think I had the right to change my mind and tell you, oh, actually, today I like purple, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's a silly thing, but we
But
have
it's
the right to
true.
change our mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop and have you kind of
No, no,
yeah.
that's so good. So you're throwing so many awesome nuggets and then also action items and giving us resources, right? We can
Yeah.
talk the talk, but if we don't actually have it, how old are your kids, Jess, by the way?
They are 8 and 10.
So that goes to show you that this is applicable to kids as even younger than 8, as soon as
Mm-hmm.
they can start talking and speaking and
Yes.
communicating, instill those things. Something that hit home for me too, and I would love for you to share quickly. I know this is talking about our younger selves, but what would you tell parents, right? Like, and I
Mm,
immediately thought about, let me take a deep breath.
mm, mhm, mhm, mhm,
Thought about my sister who we're raising, and her
mm.
having that identity because she is not blood related. And I know at one point we were like, man, how do we connect her to her biological family? Because I feel like she definitely needs that resemblance. She needs, you know how you said the Harris lab?
Yeah.
Like, there's
Mhm,
so many different characteristics that she has that we don't, that she can bond with her biological family. So, that's just been a journey. But even still, like, thinking about internally what I can do to ensure that she's feeling love, because there's ways to show love. Like, we do affirmations with her. We do tell her, different things. We do tell her we love her. But is that enough for her? So that kind of stood out to me. So
mhm,
thank you so much for being transparent and sharing that, because that's where it made me think, like, okay, as a parent, what do I need? And then also putting my what's the word, like, putting myself in her shoes as to what she needs to ensure that she's growing up as fulfilled as possible. I know I can't do it all because I am not her mom. I am not her biological family. My husband's not her father. But what can we do to ensure that that's not something that she's 30 years old and she's like, well, sissy, this is what I needed. And I'm sure there's going to be stuff, I'm not perfect. But that's kind of where it led me to think. So I love it, the personal bill of rights, and I'm sure you can insert things in that too, as you see fit, like
yes.
your kids did.
Yes. Yes. So use the so I'm in transparent in the sense of, like, I didn't have these I am statements. And so I have different ones for myself now. But I think sometimes we get stuck and I don't know what to say. When you don't
Mm,
love yourself, so I
mm,
used to hear this often. You don't have love of yourself. Like, it's almost like a disrespectful thing. Like, why don't you love yourself? And that's why I said this thing about, when you've experienced trauma, you don't know how to love yourself, because all you've heard is you're this, you're that, you're not enough.
mm.
So don't tell that person. So this is like a thing, that of a way we can have community with each other and be more gracious, and stop telling people that.
Yeah.
Some people need a safe place. I saw this, Crystal, if I find it again, I'll send it to you. But I love this group. It's called CL DLC Anxiety. It's a group I really like, but they post a lot of different things. But they have posted, how do you help somebody who has a lot of anxiety? So I have personal, like, generalized anxiety. And so I really relate to this particular account. But it's that, if I'm not loving myself, but I'm asking you for a lot of assurance, like, please be gracious with me.
Yeah.
And so again, we have to meet people where they are, but don't just assume because someone doesn't have self-love or high self-esteem that they've done it in and of themselves. Like, I didn't cause my trauma to make me not have confidence. But I'm not holding that my parents didn't do X, Y, and Z. That's why I'm doing the work. That's why I'm doing the therapy. So I just wanted to kind of encapsulate that. But as you were talking, I'm curious of, I have some things written down that I wanted to say. I was curious of how old your sister is.
She's 10.
She's 10, so she's my son's age. And I just want to, the empath in me can't, I saw you get emotional. I just want to recognize that, like, I know that that's not easy. I maybe didn't mention it directly, but I ended up in a home where my dad remarried in a blended family. And so my heart bleeds and just like sits in that moment with you. So I see you,
Thank
sis.
you.
What I would tell to parents, especially parents of blended families, what I wrote down was show love through action. And also really learn your child's love language. So, for example, I have a 8-year-old as my daughter Claire, and I have my son who's 10 years old. And of course, like they're a boy and they're a girl, and they're very drastically different. But how my son needs for me to show up for him in love is different from my daughter. So, for example, my son has a disability. I don't like to say he has a disability because I think it's just uniqueness, but the world classifies it as a disability. And I'm accepting of that. So part of that, I've learned a lot of ways to navigate with him that I didn't have to do with my daughter. So for example, it takes a little bit longer for him to kind of pick up on things. So when he does something, I praise him a lot. I'm like, do that again. And I
Yeah.
have to do it often. And so one day my daughter kind of called me out. You're always praising Anthony for et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't realize I knew I had to do it with him. I wasn't as conscious of like, oh, I didn't think she needed it. Not because I didn't want to give that to her. I just was like, oh, you're gonna do it one time, and I am gonna praise you, and I'm grateful that you did, especially when we were younger. But I'm not gonna do it every time because you're a lot more consistent than your brother is.
Yeah.
But so then like correcting. So that's one, I guess, one advice if I had to give is just learning their love language and adapting, like not holding on, like, okay, I messed up, right? I messed up. That was a shortfall on me, but I'm teachable and I want to, that she gave me some feedback. I want to respond to the feedback. So yesterday, she did something and I got in the car. I was like, okay, good, yay. You know, I was amping her up because I see how that encourages her. And
Yeah.
so though she may need it for a different reason than he does, I'm still responding. So learning, there's just being really attentive to them. I know this is your sister. I'm not sure the whole background story, but just be attentive and show through actions and show in ways that may be helpful for them. So I don't know. She's older enough. I don't know if she's. I don't know what the age limit of this is, but I think there is one for kids. It's called. Have you ever heard of the 5 love languages?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's one for kids. If I'm mistaken, I can't remember. You can look it up on the website.
She's definitely affirmations and
Affirmations. Also, lean.
attention. She's, yeah. It's like
Yeah,
sometimes I'm like, all right, Kirsten, you tied your shoes. Like, okay. Like
yeah,
I'm
but
trying to
just
not undermine it, but I'm like, we went through that when you were 6. Like, let's go.
but she. So
Mhm.
this is one thing I wanted to say about perspective. So a child, I don't know again the dynamics, but often when you're in a blended family, one characteristic type of trauma is abandonment,
Oh yeah.
fear that someone's going to abandon me again. So again, I shared that story about my mom leaving me. That is something I actively have to counter on a regular basis. So that's why I'm really intentional about relationships because there's a part of me, yes, I've learned that people can be seasonal. They can come, they can go in your life. But I've learned that like that is because I've experienced such a deep trauma that will always be there. So I've told my friends, like, I'm gonna need your reassurance. If there's something that changes, damn it, I'm gonna need you to come back to me and tell me. And so just be adaptive and really understand if that's her love language. It's like it's almost like air breathing, like she needs it. And so just trying to find ways that like feel authentic to you, but really responding in that way. So just being aware of that. And then continual reassurance for someone who's experienced trauma or is uncertain or they haven't certain things, that continual reassurance. It may seem redundant, like you said, I done told you 10,000 times, great job tying your shoe. But for her, she may need that a lot more than others. And she may eventually grow up and she doesn't need it as much. But if that's what she needs right now, kind of
Yeah.
leaning into that. So just providing that continual assurance. And then as she's getting older, I would say ask, right? Ask what she needs. She may be too young to tell you, but I'm always amazed. Even my son is 10. She's the same age as your sister. I'm amazed he'll tell me. Like he's been telling me recently, Mommy, you spend more time with Claire than me. And I had to tell him, I am, but it's circumstances. She's been more sick than you. So I've had to be home with her more than you.
Yeah.
So I've tried to find more ways to connect with him. And my last thing, I believe in this fundamentally. Get her some support. All parents, listen, if your child has experienced any level of abandonment, trauma, big trauma, mini trauma, something that's developing, get them therapy, get them some support so they can have someone speaking to them at their level, at their language. And so that's what I would say to parents, like just be really in tune with your children, give yourself grace. I'm not out here saying I'm the perfect parent. I'm not. I'm sure I've made mistakes. I'm sure my kids will say something about me. I'm a single mom doing the best that I can, but giving myself more grace that I know what I've known, but I'm actively doing that inner work to break generational curses, and that they are experiencing the benefit of me healing. That
Yeah.
little girl that
Yeah.
was broken because their mama left her, that thank God he's healed me. And
Yeah.
so I don't have to project that onto them. They I love my countenance of my kids because they have so much joy. My daughter, like you may see her popping in sometimes on the call, but she just has such a like a confidence, a swag, a demeanor about her that I know that's because she sees that in her mommy. So
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
lot to share,
No,
but
that is
I hope that's
beautiful.
helpful.
Absolutely beautiful. Breaking those generational curses. Although you're a single mom, you're doing it, right? And that
Mhm.
the evidence, that is the evidence of your kids
Yes,
being able to vocalize when they're not receiving something from you because your daughter's sick. So your son's like, hey mom, what's up? Like, I need more time. And you're able to adjust. And you're not, and oftentimes as parents we do this, especially when we're old school, right? We're like, oh well, you should be grateful that I did give you this, or I provided X, Y, and Z, don't you see me like taking a step back and realizing and validating their feelings and adjusting
yes,
that, as opposed to I'm the adult, this is how it's supposed to be,
yes.
take it or leave it and deal with it.
And giving I know our time is almost up. I wanted to add giving voice. That's something when our old school generation didn't have us. You're told, you're not asked nothing. It's not a conversation. They told you to sit down, you need to sit down. There's no conversation about for example, like something happened with my son yesterday. I believed him. I believed him
Mhm.
and I called the principal because
Mhm.
I want him to know that I heard him. This is
Yeah.
concerning. I'm going to put action. So I am adamant. There is nothing else I do with my kids. Yes, I'm gonna do affirmations. Yes, I want to bring them to faith and them to know God, but I want them more than anything to have a voice.
Yeah.
So it's uncomfortable sometimes when my daughter's like, why this, why that, and da, 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 all the things. And sometimes I have to tell her no, it's just a no, and I don't have to explain it.
Yeah.
But give your children voice, and that comes through practice. It's uncomfortable when I tell this to my kids actively. I am not my parents, and the reason why I say that is because when they do certain things, what I remember is how I was treated. And
Oh,
I'm
of
like, I do not want to do that with you. So I don't want to be physical with you. I don't want to spank you. Though sometimes it may, but it's like
yeah.
last resort that I have to do that. I want them to know that can have voice. I may still have to discipline them. I may have to take away electronics. They
Yeah.
may don't get to do the thing they wanted to do. But more than anything, I want them to have a safe space. If they have issues, if they have problems, that they can come to me, we can talk. And so we got to create that safe space. I would encourage you, but also to others that are listening, parents, gain voice. And even to that 21-year-old, my younger self, or that 6-year-old, 7-year-old, that early teen, keep your voice. Don't let anyone take your voice. If you loud, be loud. If you funny and shy, be funny and shy. If you're passionate about makeup, be passionate about makeup, but don't let people take your voice. Find the thing that you love, find that passion, and keep speaking it.
Amen. That's beautiful. Self-love, right? That's what it
Yes,
goes back to. Loving yourself, but realizing, okay, if you don't have that validation, those affirmations from your parents, it's never too late to get back to it.
yes,
Start off small and build gradually. It's never
yes,
too late.
yes,
And although we're maneuvering this social media world and all types of different stuff, I can go into the list, but validate, look in yourself in the mirror, look at your profile, look at your
yes,
videos, look at yourself and find that for yourself. You
yes.
don't have to be anybody else. So thank
And
you. Go ahead.
mhm.
No, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say one last thing is ask for help, right? The tenet of this that I was saying about self self-love is get some village around you that
Mhm.
can remind you. So I message you, Crystal, hey, I'm not having a good day. You jumping back to me like, girl, you amazing. You wonderful. Find you some people that really love you, that one will tell you the truth when you're doing wrong. That's what I love about aunties, but also that will remind you of who you are. It's okay. If you need help, reach out for help. If you like, I don't know how to write I statements and affirmation, reach out to Crystal, reach out to me, and we can help support you. But don't do this alone. Don't feel shame. Don't feel like you can't. Like there is so much here in social media. It's important to stay in your lane and be reminded. I say this to my kids all the time. And I said this to my son yesterday. He's so funny. He's so nonchalant. It's just so cute. I said, Anthony, there's nobody in the world like you. And he said, yeah, mommy, I know. Like when you
I
just
love
hold
it.
on to that. There's nobody with your DNA unless you're an identical twin. That's a whole different story. But even in that, they
Even
are
in that.
two different people.
Yep.
There's nobody in the world like you. They got your swag, they got your juice, they got your message. I have a message for certain people. Crystal, you have a message for certain people. Other people may have certain messages for certain people, but I'm
Yep.
staying in my lane, doing it my way. And that is so important. So don't look at social media. It's easy to get caught into.
It's
Crystal's doing this.
so
Auntie Jess is
easy.
doing this. It's so easy, but like always go in there. Listen, I'm bringing a juice that ain't nobody else bringing.
Love it. Well, I hope I'm sure everyone got great information out of this episode. What a beautiful story. Thank you for being transparent, to being
Yeah.
open, to sharing your family with us. Anthony and Claire killing it with their confidence levels,
Yes.
telling their mom, like, hey, mom, what's up? Which is
Yes.
really
Checking me.
important.
Yeah.
So I love this episode too because you shared a little bit about the younger self, but also for parents like me who's like, okay, how do we navigate these things? So yes, as always, if you guys have any questions, comments, want to connect, where can we find you, Jess?
You can find me on Instagram, love Auntie Jess. But you can find all my social media if you just go to my website, jessicaaharris.com. So JESSICAA, so it's two A's together, HARRIS.com.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure, and I am sure I will speak to you soon.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.